Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of my amendment number 18 to H.R. 8997, which prohibits funds for the Department of Energy's implementation of its proposed industrial decarbonization roadmap. The Industrial Decarbonization Roadmap radically reforms 4 different categories of CO2 emitters in the residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation sectors. We've seen this administration target residential carbon emissions by going after everything that works in your home, from gas stoves to washers and dryers to water heaters. Additionally, we've seen this administration go after the transportation sector through tailpipe emission requirements, fuel efficiency standards, and propping up the electric vehicle industry. The Industrial Decarbonization Roadmap specifically targets a few key industries that significantly contribute to the stability of our nation's economy and supply chain, namely the petroleum refining, chemicals, iron and steel, cement, and food and beverage industries. This so-called roadmap actually recommends the use of less efficient energy sources, including so-called clean energy, to ultimately replace the use of affordable and reliable energy resources. This roadmap is anti-energy independence and in favor of forced transition away from fossil fuels. According to the Department of Energy, this initiative is, quote, critical to equity goals, specifically the administration's Justice 40 initiative. However, there is nothing just about forcing millions of Americans into energy poverty. For those of my colleagues who may support this roadmap, remember that it is your fellow Americans who pay for it. One of the goals mentioned in the roadmap is, quote, to prepare the existing 11.4 million American manufacturing workers and future workforce for the clean energy transition, end quote. Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that this administration is not concerned about our workers. I recently met with coal miners in Wyoming whose livelihoods have been threatened by a recent BLM action. I asked OSMRE and the BLM in a recent hearing what their plans were to mitigate for the tens of thousands of job losses that will result from this regulation, and they couldn't answer. As the sole representative of a state whose legacy industries have been undermined by the federal government in the name of this so-called transition, I voiced my strong opposition to this roadmap. I urge passage of my amendment, and with that, I reserve.
For what reason does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I claim time in opposition.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
First, let me say that I rise in strong opposition to this amendment, but I understand the gentlelady's desire to protect the jobs of people in the state that she is sworn to represent. I respect that very much. Southern Ohio has had a lot of transition in the energy industry, and we understand what it means when you lose jobs. And we have a fossil fuel energy research lab in the state of Pennsylvania that actually is looking at products like coal and seeing if in fact there aren't rare earths in there that are worth more per ton than traditional mining. I just mentioned that. But I sadly have to rise in opposition to her amendment because it would essentially prohibit funds to implement the Industrial Decarbonization Roadmap published by the Department of Energy in fiscal year 2022. And the purpose of the roadmap is to develop a strategic approach to decarbonizing the nation's industrial sector. I come from a major industrial area. I can't tell you how many funerals I have been to, including my own brother's, of people who worked in industry. His situation was as a mechanic on heavy-duty equipment, garbage trucks, fire trucks, police cars, working in garages where the people ingested the fumes. George Tucker, who was the head of our Local 7 unit in that garage, had a double cancer. He suffered for almost 2 decades. Believe me, these are horrendous illnesses that come from working in unsafe conditions. And so the purpose of the roadmap is to develop a strategic approach to decarbonizing the nation's industrial sector, which we need, while simultaneously creating good-paying jobs for American workers, spurring economic growth, developing U.S. leadership in new technologies, and creating a cleaner, more equitable future for all Americans. It is really tragic, the conditions that a number of our mechanics, whether they're working for repairing airplanes or whether they are working in extractive industries, the conditions that they work under. And one of the interesting things to look at is in the different states that we live in. If you look at the occupational safety and health bills that come in the form of health care, the money that it costs to take care of sick people who have had to work in these industries, that's not our job in this account, but I can guarantee you we hemorrhage money because of the illnesses of people across this country. This roadmap focused on proven steps for energy technology innovation, advancing early-stage research and development, investing in multiple industrial process strategies, scaling through demonstrations and integrating solutions from that. Particularly with what is happening to air quality because of the climate crisis, our efforts are even more needed to make the industrial sector more efficient. To position it to be a global leader in innovation as well as clean air and clean circumstances that people work in, and to be competitive in the future global clean energy economy. We really are transitioning to a different world. It will be a healthier one. And I really don't want to go back to the 20th century and what these individuals and their families have had to live through. It's really ugly. And while it is clear that we need an all-of-the-above energy strategy that taps domestic oil and gas and invests in clean energy, we must also continue to promote energy innovation in all sectors of our economy. It's just intelligent. It's just the wise thing to do for the country. And the transition will be difficult. And we know that because people lose jobs and technologies go out of date, but some that come on are just ingenious. And America is a country of invention, and I believe that we will work our way forward in this new challenge to decarbonize our nation's industrial sector, create good-paying jobs, spur economic growth, create a cleaner future for all of Americans, and lead the world in these new technologies. So I strongly urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
The Biden-Harris administration hasn't been shy about its distaste for American workers who provide affordable and reliable energy to the rest of the country. This administration cares more about filling the pockets of OPEC, Venezuela, and Iran than it does about energy independence, energy affordability, and energy reliability. The main component of the roadmap is a transition to what they refer to as no-carbon fuels. Not only is such a goal ludicrous and infeasible, but Americans see through these claims. The reality that this so-called no-carbon fuels receive 4 times more in subsidies and yet produce only 1/5 of the energy. They are simply unreliable and unaffordable, even with the ridiculous amount of taxpayer money being thrown at them. This so-called clean energy is completely propped up by the federal government. Figures from the U.S. Energy Information Administration show that renewables receive at least $15.6 billion in subsidies during the fiscal year 2022. Ironically, the second largest recipients of subsidies, according to the Energy Administration information, are low-income families who are struggling to pay their utility bills under this administration. And why are they struggling? They are struggling because of rising energy prices and rising utility rates that come as the result of forcing this so-called transition, forced energy poverty by an out-of-touch Biden-Harris administration. We cannot afford to pursue these failed energy policies imposed upon us by this radical administration. I ask my colleagues to join me in defunding the Department of Energy's implementation of its proposed industrial decarbonization roadmap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.